Give us that folder right now.
You are responsible for this.
Emily Carter had barely crossed the polished hospital lobby when her mother screamed that she was a criminal. Her father pointed at her suitcase and demanded security drag her away before she could destroy another family. For one suspended second, the entire entrance of Seattle Grace Memorial seemed to stop breathing. Nurses paused beside the elevators. Patients turned in their wheelchairs. A man holding a paper coffee cup lowered it without drinking. The glass doors whispered open behind Emily, letting in a blade of cold morning air, but she did not move. Her fingers stayed wrapped around the handle of her small navy suitcase. Her other hand held a thin leather folder pressed against her ribs, close to her heartbeat. Linda Carter staggered forward in a pale cream coat, her face twisted into a performance of terror so perfect it almost looked real. "That is my daughter," she cried, pointing at Emily as though pointing at a stranger. "She stole protected medical files from our clinic. She is unstable. She is trying to get a job here with fraudulent records." Warren Carter arrived beside her, broad-shouldered, red-faced, breathing hard from the run across the parking lot. "Stop her now," he barked at the security desk. "I own Carter Family Wellness in Phoenix. That woman is fleeing an investigation." "That woman. Not my daughter." Emily felt the words strike, but they did not cut as deeply as they once would have. 3 weeks ago, she might have cried. 3 weeks ago, she might have begged them to lower their voices. But the version of Emily who lived for their approval had been buried somewhere between a locked office drawer and a forged signature. She did not look at her parents. She looked past them, toward the bank of elevators at the far end of the lobby. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped out just as the nearest security guard reached for his radio. Dr. Nathan Brooks, hospital director, carried a tablet under one arm and moved with the calm authority of someone used to emergencies bending around him. His silver hair was neatly combed. His expression was severe. Then his eyes landed on Emily. For a heartbeat, he looked at the folder in her hand. Then at her face. The anger in Warren's voice grew louder. "Search her suitcase. You will find everything. She has patient records, billing documents, stolen credentials." Emily finally spoke, her voice low, steady, and almost too calm for the chaos circling her. "I am here for my credential review." Linda let out a broken laugh. "Credential review. Listen to her. She has been having a breakdown for weeks. She canceled her own licensing exam because she knew she would fail." That lie pulled the past open like a wound. 3 weeks earlier, Emily had stood in the back office of Carter Family Wellness in Phoenix, staring at a computer screen that showed the end of her future. Her advanced healthcare administration exam had been canceled. The official note said she had voluntarily withdrawn due to emotional instability. She remembered the hum of the old air conditioner above her head, the smell of antiseptic and stale coffee, the muffled voices of patients waiting in exam rooms she had prepared herself. For 6 years, she had kept that clinic alive. She scheduled appointments, corrected billing mistakes, calmed furious patients, trained careless assistants, and caught errors before they became lawsuits. Warren called himself the founder. Linda called herself the heart of the clinic. But Emily was the pulse. Without her, the place would have collapsed before lunch. Her dream had been simple. Pass the exam. Accept the Seattle Fellowship. Leave Phoenix before her family could drain another year from her bones. Then the exam disappeared. When she confronted them that night, Linda had been sitting at the kitchen island, arranging white roses for Chloe's desert resort wedding. Warren stood beside the refrigerator with his arms folded, watching Emily like she was an employee asking for a raise. "You are not going to Seattle," Linda said without looking up. "Your sister's wedding is in 2 weeks. The clinic is drowning. This family needs you." "I earned that exam seat," Emily said. "I paid for it myself." Warren's eyes hardened. "You paid for it with money you made while living under our roof." Chloe, glowing in her silk robe, glanced up from her phone and sighed. "Emily, do not be dramatic. It is just a test. My wedding only happens once." In that moment, Emily saw the shape of her cage with perfect clarity. Her parents did not fear losing a daughter. They feared losing free labor. Chloe did not fear losing a sister. She feared losing the invisible hands that cleaned up every mess before it reached her. Then Emily remembered the envelope. 2 days earlier, a letter from the state licensing board had arrived with her name printed across the front. Warren had snatched it from her hand and said it was clinic paperwork. At the time, she had been too exhausted to fight. Now, standing in the Seattle hospital lobby with her parents calling her a thief, Emily understood that the cancelled exam was only the surface. Dr. Brooks walked closer. The lobby quieted beneath his presence. He studied Emily's face again, and recognition slowly broke through his professional mask. "Emily Carter," he said. Warren stopped mid-sentence. Dr. Brooks lowered his tablet. "Las Vegas Medical Leadership Conference. 2 years ago. You were the one who took control when Dr. Henson collapsed during the keynote dinner." Emily felt the grip of the past loosen around her throat. "Yes, sir," she said. Dr. Brooks turned toward security, his voice calm but final. "Nobody touches her suitcase." "Not yet." For the first time that morning, Warren looked afraid. Linda's painted mouth opened, but no sound came out. And Emily, still standing beneath the bright hospital lights, felt something quiet and powerful rise inside her. They had followed her across the country to bury her future. They did not know she had brought the shovel. 3 weeks before Emily Carter stood in the middle of Seattle Grace Memorial with her parents trying to turn her into a criminal, she sat alone in a 24-hour bank branch in Phoenix, watching a teller cancel the theft of her future. The fluorescent lights above her buzzed softly. Outside the glass doors, the desert morning was still gray, the kind of quiet gray that comes before the sun turns the asphalt into fire. Emily had not slept. Her hair was tied back with a black elastic band. Her eyes burned from hours of staring at screens, bank notices, and the cancelled exam record that still sat open on her phone like a fresh bruise. The teller, a woman with silver glasses and a careful voice, looked at the computer and frowned. "This transfer was requested by Linda Carter," she said. $12,000 to Chloe Carter Wedding Reserve." Emily felt the number settle in her stomach like a stone. $12,000. That was not a gift. That was rent for a daughter who had never cooked her own meals, never balanced a clinic ledger, never stayed past midnight explaining rejected insurance claims to frightened elderly patients. That money had come from Emily's night work, from private consulting calls, from fixing the medical billing disasters of small practices after spending all day saving her parents' clinic from collapse. "Cancel it," Emily said. Her voice did not shake. The teller hesitated. "Your mother is still listed as a joint user on the old savings account. She can request another transfer if the account remains open." "Then close it," Emily replied. "Transfer every remaining dollar into the new account under my name only." For the first time in days, she watched something happen that her parents could not control. The numbers moved. The account emptied. Linda's invisible hand was cut off at the wrist. When Emily stepped back into the morning, the sun had begun to rise over Phoenix, painting the windshield of her car in hard gold. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt colder. Stealing the exam had been control. Stealing the money was strategy. Her parents were not panicking. They were building a cage. That afternoon, Emily returned to Carter Family Wellness and played the role they expected. She checked impatience. She smiled at Mrs. Alvarez when the older woman apologized for being late. She reordered sterile gloves, corrected a prescription typo Warren had missed, and cleaned exam room 3 after a child spilled grape juice across the paper sheet. Linda watched from the reception desk with a satisfied softness in her eyes. She believed Emily's silence meant surrender. Warren believed the same thing. Chloe believed nothing at all unless it affected her wedding. By closing time, Emily's jaw ached from holding. back every word she wanted to say. Then her phone buzzed inside the pocket of her scrub jacket. The number was unsaved, but the message contained only one sentence. Do not answer this here. Go outside, then open the secure link. Emily stepped into the rear alley behind the clinic, where the dumpsters smelled of heat, dust, and old cardboard. She clicked the link. A black screen opened. White text appeared. It was from Rachel Monroe, her former sister-in-law, the only person who had ever escaped the Carter family without apologizing for it. I know what they did to your exam. Bring your birth certificate, your license number, and any board correspondence. Meet me at Cactus Bloom Coffee at 6 in the morning. Come alone. Emily read it twice, then deleted the message. The next morning, before the city fully woke, she drove across Phoenix with her documents hidden beneath the spare tire cover in her trunk. Rachel was waiting in a corner booth, wearing a navy blazer, her dark hair clipped back, a laptop open beside an untouched cup of black coffee. She did not hug Emily. She did not waste time on pity. She turned the laptop around. Your mother did not just cancel your exam, Rachel said. She called the licensing board pretending to be you. Emily's breath stopped. Rachel tapped the screen. Full name. Date of birth. Social security number. She told them you were emotionally unstable and no longer fit to sit for the credential review. That triggered a caution flag on your professional file. If you walked into Seattle without fixing this, they would treat you like a liability before you said one word. Emily stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Linda had not just blocked a door. She had poisoned the road beyond it. Rachel's voice dropped lower. It gets worse. Warren has been using your electronic credentials on insurance submissions. Not once. Not twice. Dozens of times. Some of those claims are questionable. If auditors come, they will say you were the operations lead. Emily shook her head slowly. I never signed that role. Rachel's eyes hardened. Someone signed it for you. She opened another file. A scanned administrative agreement appeared, naming Emily Carter as Clinical Operations Director of Carter Family Wellness. At the bottom sat a smooth, confident version of her signature, beautiful enough to be believed by anyone who did not know the shape of her real hand. Emily felt something inside her go silent. Fear did not vanish. It sharpened. My parents made me the shield, she whispered. Rachel closed the laptop halfway. Yes. And now we make sure the shield turns into evidence. By noon, Emily had signed a sworn statement, requested emergency review from the licensing board, and scheduled a direct credential interview in Seattle. Rachel contacted a healthcare fraud attorney who specialized in forged compliance documents. Emily sent copies of everything into a protected cloud folder. That night, she returned to the clinic, tied her hair back, and finished the patient charts with perfect calm. Warren passed her in the hallway and grunted, "Good. Looks like you finally remembered where you belong." Emily lowered her eyes, letting him believe he had won. But beneath her calm face, the truth was moving. Quietly. Legally. Irreversibly. They had taken her name and used it as a lock. They had no idea she was learning how to turn it into a key. For the next 8 days, Emily Carter became exactly what her parents wanted to see. She arrived at Carter Family Wellness before sunrise, unlocked the front doors, turned on the waiting room lights, brewed the bitter office coffee, and placed the fresh intake forms on the clipboard tray with the same quiet precision she had practiced for years. She smiled at patients. She answered phones. She corrected Warren's careless notes before they could become legal problems. She let Linda speak to her in that slow, superior tone people used when they believed they had successfully broken someone. Every yes, Linda, and of course, Warren, tasted like ash in Emily's mouth, but she swallowed it with a calm face. In the Carter family, rage had always been used as a weapon by the loudest person in the room. Emily chose something sharper. Silence. Linda mistook it for obedience. Warren mistook it for fear. Chloe mistook it for permission. None of them understood that Emily was no longer fighting for their approval. She was gathering proof. Every night, after the last patient left and the desert heat faded into a dry purple dusk, Emily stayed behind under the excuse of finishing charts. She moved through the clinic like a ghost who knew every hidden hinge and every tired lock. The front office smelled of toner, hand sanitizer, and old carpet. The exam room sat empty, paper sheets crinkling softly whenever the air conditioning kicked on. In Warren's private office, behind framed certificates and a dusty golf trophy, stood the locked gray filing cabinet he had guarded for years. Emily had once been afraid of that cabinet. Now she opened it with a spare key she had found taped beneath the third drawer of Linda's desk. The lock clicked softly. Inside were the bones of the lie. She found insurance claim batches submitted under her electronic credentials on days she had been across town at supplier meetings. She found handwritten notes from Linda instructing staff to use Emily's login because it goes through faster. She found billing codes attached to services patients had never received. And near the back, inside a blue folder labeled Compliance, she found the document that made her blood turn cold. It was an administrative appointment agreement naming Emily Carter as Clinical Operations Director of Carter Family Wellness. Under that title, she would be responsible for claim accuracy, patient record compliance, and internal audits. The signature at the bottom looked almost perfect. Almost. Her real signature had a slight upward flick at the end of the C. This one curled downward, like a hook. Emily took one slow breath, then another. They had not only trapped her inside the clinic. They had tried to place the entire roof on her shoulders before setting the building on fire. She photographed every page. She scanned the forged agreement, the billing records, the internal notes, the login reports. She sent each file into the encrypted folder Rachel had created. Her hands did not shake. That frightened her more than trembling would have. Fear had become procedure. Betrayal had become evidence. The next afternoon, Chloe floated into the clinic wearing oversized sunglasses and a silk blouse the color of champagne. She carried a glossy folder filled with wedding samples and dropped it onto Emily's desk while Emily was reviewing a patient referral. "I need $15,000 by Friday," Chloe said, as if asking for a glass of water. "The resort wants the final deposit, and the floral designer will not hold the white orchid wall without payment." Emily did not look up. "I do not have $15,000 for your wedding." Chloe's smile vanished. "Do not be selfish. You are not moving to Seattle anymore. Mom said that dream is handled." Emily lifted her eyes then, slowly. Handled. The word settled between them, ugly and revealing. Before Chloe could speak again, Linda appeared from the hallway holding a sheet of cream stationery. Her pearls rested perfectly against her throat. Her expression carried no warmth, only calculation dressed as motherhood. She placed the paper on Emily's desk. "Sign this." Emily read the words. It was a family support agreement stating that Emily would voluntarily contribute her personal savings to cover emergency clinic expenses and Chloe's wedding obligations. At the bottom was a blank signature line. Linda tapped it with one polished fingernail. "You live in our house. You work in our clinic. Your father and I have carried you long enough. It is time you gave back." A year earlier, those words would have crushed Emily. She would have explained. She would have pleaded. She would have tried to prove she was grateful, loyal, good. Now she saw only another document for the folder. Emily picked up the paper, folded it once, then folded it again. She slid it into the pocket of her scrub jacket. "No," she said. The room went still. Chloe gasped as if Emily had slapped her. Linda's face hardened. Warren stormed in moments later, drawn by the silence more than the argument. When Linda told him what happened, his face turned a deep, dangerous red. "You need time to think," he said. He grabbed Emily by the arm, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to remind her what kind of man he believed himself to be. He marched her down the rear hallway and pushed open the supply room door. Inside were towers of old file boxes, expired sample kits, broken printers, and archived insurance records. "You come out when you are ready to apologize," Warren snapped. The lock turned from the outside. Darkness settled around her. For one long moment, Emily stood still, breathing in dust and cardboard. Then she pulled out her phone. Full battery. Strong signal. Around her sat years of hidden records. She smiled for the first time in days. They thought they had locked her in a cage. They had actually locked her inside the vault. By the time Warren Carter unlocked the supply room the next morning, Emily had already copied the past 6 years of his secrets. She sat on an overturned file box, her scrub jacket folded neatly across her lap, her face calm beneath the weak yellow ceiling light. Around her, the dusty cartons looked untouched. Warren expected swollen eyes, trembling hands, a daughter softened by heat and fear. Instead, Emily stood, brushed a thin layer of dust from her pants, and walked past him without a word. His confusion followed her down the hallway like a shadow. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Emily did not answer. She entered the front office, washed her hands, tied back her hair, and began arranging the morning charts. Linda watched her from behind the reception desk, suspicious but satisfied. In Linda's mind, silence meant surrender. In Warren's mind, obedience meant victory. They both failed to notice that Emily's phone had already sent the forged compliance agreement, the fraudulent insurance logs, and Linda's handwritten demand for Emily's savings to Rachel Monroe and the healthcare fraud attorney in Seattle. The trap was no longer a plan. It was a schedule. At 8 in the morning, Emily quietly disabled her electronic credentials through the licensing portal. At 8:15, she submitted a formal notice stating that her login had been used without authorization. At 8:30, her attorney filed a protective disclosure with the Insurance Compliance Division. By 9, Carter Family Wellness began to choke. Claims would not process. Payment batches stalled. A warning banner appeared on the billing dashboard. Linda clicked it again and again, her polished nails striking the mouse like tiny hammers. Warren cursed at the computer, then blamed the internet, then blamed the software company, then finally looked toward Emily's empty desk. But Emily was no longer there. Before dawn, while the house was still black and quiet, she had rolled her suitcase down the back walkway and left her old white scrub jacket folded across the reception counter. Beneath it lay Linda's unsigned family support agreement and a printed copy of Emily's formal withdrawal from all administrative responsibility at the clinic. Rachel had picked her up at a gas station 2 miles away, headlights off, engine running, coffee waiting in the cup holder. Now, while Warren and Linda were discovering the locked accounts and frozen billing system, Emily was already on a flight to Seattle. She sat by the window, watching the Arizona desert fall away beneath the wing. The land below looked dry, cracked, and distant, like a life she had finally stopped watering with her own blood. Rachel sat beside her, scrolling through encrypted messages from the attorney. "They know you are gone," Rachel said. Emily nodded. "They will follow." Rachel's expression tightened. "Then let them. We have the evidence." Emily looked at the clouds gathering ahead. For the first time in years, she felt fear and freedom living in the same breath. Back in Phoenix, panic had turned the Carter household into a furnace. Chloe's wedding vendors were calling nonstop. The desert resort wanted the final payment. The florist refused to install the white orchid wall. The caterer demanded a certified transfer before unloading a single tray of food. Chloe stood in the clinic lobby in a satin robe, screaming that Emily had ruined the most important day of her life. Linda tried to soothe her, but her own voice was shaking. Warren tore through Emily's desk and found the appointment details she had planted in plain sight. A credential review. Seattle Grace Memorial. 4 in the afternoon. He believed he had found her destination and her deadline. He did not know the time was false. He did not know Emily's Real review was scheduled before noon. He only knew his clinic was collapsing, his youngest daughter's. Wedding was unraveling, and the child he had treated like office equipment had walked away with the power to expose him. By late morning, Warren and Linda were on the next flight to Seattle. They rehearsed their story in harsh whispers. Emily was unstable. Emily stole files. Emily sabotaged the clinic because she was bitter. Linda dabbed her eyes with a tissue, practicing tears that had fooled church friends and neighbors for years. Warren called Seattle Grace Memorial from the airport and reported that a dangerous former employee was attempting to enter the hospital with stolen patient records. When Emily stepped through the glass doors of the hospital, she felt the accusation waiting before she heard it. Linda's scream tore across the lobby. Warren's voice followed, loud and commanding. Security turned. Patients stared. Phones rose. Emily placed her suitcase on the floor and kept both hands visible. She did not run. Running would feed their lie. She lifted her eyes toward the elevators just as Dr. Nathan Brooks stepped out. His gaze found her face, then the leather folder in her hand. Recognition moved across him slowly, like sunrise over steel. Warren was still shouting when Dr. Brooks raised one hand. The lobby quieted. Emily breathed in. The past had chased her across the country. Now it had reached the only place where the truth was stronger than their noise. Dr. Nathan Brooks did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The moment his hand lifted, the entire lobby seemed to obey a pressure greater than noise. Security stopped moving. The nurses near the elevator froze. Warren Carter's mouth remained open, but the next accusation died somewhere behind his teeth. Emily stood beside her suitcase, one hand resting lightly on the leather folder that held the evidence her parents had never believed she was strong enough to gather. Dr. Brooks stepped closer, his eyes fixed on her face. Emily Carter, he said again, this time with certainty. Las Vegas Medical Leadership Conference. You kept a collapsed keynote speaker alive until the emergency team arrived. You also reorganized the entire medication response station when the staff panicked. I remember. You. The words moved through the lobby like a clean wind. Linda's carefully practiced tears faltered. Warren's face darkened. That was years ago, he snapped. It has nothing to do with what she has done now. She stole protected medical records from our clinic. She is unstable. She is trying to manipulate you. Emily opened the leather folder with calm fingers. I brought no patient files, she said. I brought evidence that my name, license number, and electronic credentials were used without my consent. Dr. Brooks accepted the first packet. His expression sharpened as he read. The forged administrative appointment. The billing logs. The licensing board flag. The sworn statement. The handwritten agreement Linda had tried to force Emily to sign. Page after page turned in his hands, and with every page, Warren seemed to shrink. Linda reached for her old weapon. Grief. She pressed one hand to her chest and let her voice tremble. She is our daughter. We are only trying to protect her. She has been confused for weeks. She cancelled her own exam, and now she is inventing stories because she is embarrassed. Emily looked at her mother, and for the first time in her life, she felt no need to be understood by her. That is not true, Emily said. You called the licensing board pretending to be me. You reported that I was emotionally unfit to sit for my credential review. Then you and Warren used my login to submit questionable insurance claims. When I refused to give Chloe my savings for her wedding, you tried to make me sign over my money. When I said no, you locked me in a supply room. A murmur spread through the lobby. A young nurse covered her mouth. One security guard shifted closer to Warren. Dr. Brooks unfolded Linda's handwritten agreement and read the blank signature line. Then he looked at Linda, not with pity, but with professional disgust. This is not family concern, Mrs. Carter. This is coercion. Warren lunged forward with words, not hands. She is lying. She destroyed our clinic this morning. She locked us out of our own billing system. She cost us everything. Emily turned to him slowly. No, Warren. I removed myself from a system you built on my name. If the clinic cannot survive without unauthorized access to my credentials, then the clinic was already dead. The sentence landed hard. Warren stared at her as though seeing, for the first time, the woman beneath the daughter he had underestimated. Dr. Brooks handed the evidence to the hospital's legal director, who had arrived silently beside him. Then he addressed security. Escort Mr. and Mrs. Carter to the administrative office. They are not to approach Miss Carter again. We will be documenting this incident and forwarding the relevant material to the licensing board and compliance authorities. Linda's face went pale. Warren started to argue, but the guard beside him stepped forward, and his courage folded. As they were led away, Linda looked back, waiting for Emily to soften, to apologize, to rescue them from the consequences of their own cruelty. Emily did nothing. She only picked up her suitcase. Dr. Brooks turned to her, his voice gentler now. Your review panel is ready when you are. Emily drew one slow breath. For 6 years, she had been the invisible engine of a failing clinic, the quiet hands behind other people's pride. Now every step down that bright hospital corridor felt like a door opening. Months later, Carter Family Wellness was under investigation. Chloe's resort wedding had collapsed into unpaid invoices and whispered scandal, and Warren and Linda were no longer able to hide behind the daughter they had tried to sacrifice. Emily remained in Seattle, accepted into the fellowship, respected for her discipline, her calm, and the very strength her family had mistaken for weakness. She learned that freedom did not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrived as a folder of evidence, a steady voice, and the courage to stop carrying people who only loved you when you were useful. If Emily's story made you think about family pressure, stolen dreams, or the power of finally choosing yourself, share your thoughts in the comments. Like this story, subscribe to Still Waters Payback, and stay with us for more stories where truth rises quietly, then changes everything.